to it. And that's what I think all role-playing games and improv scenes have in common, is that you justify why things are happening. And it's not like, well, you were wrong, this can't happen. It's like, well, it's happened. that thing has now happened. How do we proceed from here?
Hey, welcome back to Talking Improv with Dare to Fail Improv School. My name is Rich. I'm super excited for our guest today, our newest teacher with Dare to Fail Improv. Give it up for Fiona Howat.
Oh, it's me.
Thanks
yes,
so
hello. I was like, who is that? It's me. Hi.
Yes. Other people give it up for you. You don't have to give it up for yourself. Fiona, great to see you. Super excited to have you teaching. Very excited for your workshop. What got you into teaching? What excites you about teaching improv in the first place?
That's a great question. Yes, obviously, if you did not notice, that I am really into role-playing games. All the artwork behind me has some sort of arty D&D or sort of similar equivalent. And I started off by going, I really love role-playing games. I want to play more of them. But I was so worried about getting the rules wrong, because if you've been in any D&D game, everyone knows what the monsters is and all that sort of thing. So I actually cheated and learnt other RPGs and forced people to play those instead, because then no one could ever correct me. And then as a result of that, I started doing podcasting as a mixture of like, where I used to work, I used to do content creation. I was trying to convince people that audio is like the way forward, and because you don't have to worry too much about what you look like, it's just about what you sound like. And one thing I started doing was interviewing game designers about their games. It was an easy way to do content when my friends weren't free to do RPGs. And one of my someone I interviewed on that, a person called Zach. They said, I always ask the question of what's your a big tip for getting into role-playing games or to run a role-playing game? And they said, take an improv class. And I was like, that sounds amazing. Why don't I do that? And I just fell in love. I found a course the next day, which was for 6 weeks, and I've never stopped doing it since then. And so it's a mixture of both, really. And then getting out onto the other side of it, starting to teach as well, I realized a lot of people in the not in the role-playing community, in the improv community, have maybe done a bit of role-playing games, but not to a certain level. They've always wanted to do it, but they always think, but there's so many rules, and you need to know maths, and you need to know all this stuff, and you're like, oh, no. They just give you a little jumping off point. And so I've started just teaching people not only how to play role-playing games using the podcast stuff, but also how to sort of use these to tell really interesting stories. And that's how I've kind of ended up here.
Very cool. So games were you didn't know about improv or you didn't try improv until games inspired you to do so. That's
pretty
cool.
much, yeah. It's one of those things I was like, well, I should if someone's saying you should take an improv class to get better at something, certainly role-playing games, and I was like, well, I do want to get better at doing that. And so I thought, well, there's no point in going that sounds good, everyone else should do that except me. So I was like, no, I should go and actually do it myself. So yeah.
Nice. Well, the two biggest pillars of the Dare to Fail Improv School are support each other, make each other look good, number one, and then of course what it's named after, Dare to Fail. What do those concepts mean to you?
Oh, this is really interesting, because I feel like certain games and role-playing games, this is where I always come back to in this sort of sense, is that you use them. I think a lot of people now use them as almost like video games. Well, I can play out a scenario, I can plan ahead and use these things. Whereas actually, it's more fun to fail like a check or anything like that, and then just see what happens, because then everyone around the table has to react and justify to it. And that's what I think all role-playing games and improv scenes have in common, is that you justify why things are happening. And it's not well, you were wrong, this can't happen. It's well, it's happened. that thing has now happened. How do we proceed from here? We don't go, oh no, try that again. You're depending on what it is, and making each other look good. It's exactly that. It's about there's a game I always come back to called Blades in the Dark, which is you are cool criminals in the underbelly of the world, and whenever you do anything, it just happens because you are cool criminals. Why would you need to roll to unlock a door? That seems so silly. What you roll for is how successful it is, and no matter what happens, it happens. But then, you did it slightly less successfully. There's actually guards on the other side that you didn't plan for. It's that sort of thing. So I always think that these two pillars of just go for it. No matter what happens, we'll catch you. I think they're really interlinked, and no matter what story it is, you just do it, and you have more fun because everyone's got to be in the same boat eventually. You can't be the super smart person in the room all the time,
or any of the time, depending on who you are. Sometimes.
It depends on how much you lie to yourself. I think I always try and be the smartest person in the room, but it's not the case.
um, can you think of a time where you were leading a class and you just saw like a student get it, and you saw that moment? You're like, I've changed this. This is a moment of change for them that I got to witness and be, a steward of.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I recently I've been doing classes about locations because one of my big tips in anything is like, well, where are you? What's the location? And because location informs a lot of stuff about the characters within it. And one of the exercises we did was scene painting, where essentially I would suggest a fantasy or sci-fi location, and people would like physically go up and like open like the little sentry window and look in and then say something, describe a detail, and then shut it. It's always very important to shut it because you never know what might come out of these sentry windows. And we built up a scene. I think it was something to do. I think it was a carnival of some sort, so you could see like things going off in the background, and other students were using like their senses, and describing things. But my big thing was like, don't describe any people there. Just describe what you can see, because obviously we might be playing a scene in it later. And I just saw a student go, "Oh, you can do so much with like a location. Like you can describe it, but actually I can actually see it, visually see it." And they were really excited to play in that space. And they did like a really great scene of like, I think it was a carnival seller selling cotton candy to all kinds of people and going through all the different magical flavors and what they tasted like. And it was just really cool because like I think before then, I think they'd been struggling. I think they had some like processing accommodation that we had to check in with very so often. But they loved it. They realized that no matter what they said in this location, because we built it up in such a way, they felt truly supported to step out of the comfort zone and do something. I think they were, because usually they were someone that would go maybe last, so they saw everyone else go it and they go, okay, I think I've got something. And they were keen, and they were one of the first people in that scene. And I was like, yes. And it felt like a really cool moment to see them go for it, because again, it is that sort of that worry about, what if I fail at this? And it was that's nice that they saw it on their own to go, oh, I like this scene, I want to be in it straight away. So
yeah. It's beautiful. The RPG world and the improv world, as you mentioned earlier, it's not like total crossover. Not every improviser plays games, or every game player does improv. But it seems to me like what you're saying is that even though those worlds aren't necessarily the same, is that they have so much in common that they could like. It seems like improvisers who tried RPGs would find the thing they love about improv in RPGs, and vice versa. Is that accurate? Has that been your experience?
I think so. I actually think improvisers who have no role playing experience would really enjoy it, because it gives you a sense of here's like the rules of the scene. Like any short form game, you'd have that sort of little bounding box, but then it's not about, all the rules in a role playing game can be broken or bent in a certain way. Whereas often role players are like, okay, well, I'm looking at my character sheet and I can do these things. And sometimes you have to take off the character sheet, like throw it away, and be like, you are in this world. What would you do in this moment? If it's a murder mystery we're doing, like I've been reading the Blade Runner RPG just now. It's like, okay, you've got these bits of information. Where would you go from here? And it's not about like, well, I could roll for this and get that. It's like, no. What do you think you would do? And like that connection between yourself and your character is something I always think is really important. And it happens a lot in improv as well, where, let's face it, I don't know about you, Rich, but most of my characters are like maybe 1 degree away from myself, either with a high-pitched voice or like a, like a physicality. So I'm always playing to the top of my intelligence, but just having those little tweaks just really help. And I always think like, if you've never played a role-playing game or even run one, totally fine. Read one. See what information you can get from there. It's almost like reading a board game, and you can see where these pieces would lie, and then you could take them into your scenes really easily. So I think there's lots of little crossovers, and it's exciting. And bits will hit more for other people than others, but yeah, I think it's an interesting world. I think more. I always say this: more improvisers should be getting into it, and not just for content. I also say that as well. It feels very easy to be like, oh, we'll just put this story online. It's like, do it for yourself. Because I think that's something like gives you that little bit of development that you work on your own.
Oh yeah. Your class specifically that you're about to teach is world building for improv. We talked about locations. Can you kind of give a little bit of a sneak preview of like, if people take this class, like what are they in for?
Well, in this sort of workshop, what I try and get people to do is, again, it is focusing on that location a little bit, but I actually, one of the exercises I've been playing with is getting people to take like almost like an image that they've taken maybe on their phone or something that they've got maybe as a background, and to write a little bit about that, and then be able to describe that image to other people to play in that scene. So something I think is interesting about world building and scene painting is that, what you see in your mind's eye might be very different to somebody else's. So being able to communicate that efficiently, but also having that sort of flavor is really important. So we've got a couple of exercises on that, but also keep thinking about where would your favorite place to play in would be. A lot of times we're like, oh, I like to play this kind of character, or I like to do this. It's like, well, where would you like to go? Well, if you had any suggestion in the world, where would you like to be? Would you like to be somewhere hot? Would you be like to this? And then you can tailor scenes to have you play in those scenes, and like, where do you discover those new choices when you're in a place that you really love and enjoy? So those are the kinds of things we're thinking of here. It's like, you want to be, rather than just going like, what's the location? It's an airport. Cool. I've missed my flight. I don't need to worry about the airport anymore. So what if that suggestion is actually your favorite like airport? You're at the bar and you're eating barbecue, and you're like, oh, my flight's delayed, but I get to talk to the bartender, and just having those moments. And it's just like, what else can it give, essentially? So yeah, the little exercises like that that make the importance of that location significant to the player, and how we can use that in all of our scenes.
Love it. Yeah. One thing I tend to say is like, you're going to have, if you have the same conversation with the same character on an airplane versus at a funeral, it's going to look and sound very different, right? So it's like location matters, even if everything else is the same.
Exactly.
So what is all this, whether it's role-playing games or improv, what we're trying to do is get adults to play and pretend and be silly. Like, to you, what's important about giving adults a place to play and be silly?
I think this is really interesting, because I think a lot of stuff nowadays is geared towards adults being like sort of getting that nostalgia and that play. Certainly the adverts I get from all my Lego stuff now is like, oh, it's a lot of adults in the branding, which is a-okay for me. Yeah. I think as we lose that sort of that sense of vulnerability, but also that sense of like wonder and creativity, that, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, you see, people, they go to the office, and then obviously like the world is quite bad at the moment, and so you feel like you have to put on a brave face, and you've got to put these childish things away. But actually, indulging your love of fantasy, indulging your love of sci-fi, or any of those in between genres, actually allows you to be human, to be like to just enjoy and be probably a more well-rounded person, and seeing other people's points of view. So being silly in these scenes, not only can we explore certain topics really safely and in that comfort zone as well, but also being able to maybe see different viewpoints, maybe see like what else could be out there, and a different point of view. Because I always think, like you said, we could tell the same story over and over and over, but that could be really dull. And it just keeps it very safe and not very original. Like, gosh, Hollywood right now has got so many sequels on sequels on sequels, because they're worried about, if we do any sort of originality, the fans and nostalgia won't like it. But actually, allowing people to create their own stories about what they like, regardless of their age, is something we should do. And frankly, it gives a little bit of happiness in the world right now, which is, probably could do with it.
I think we could endure a little bit more, just a little bit more joy. That might help.
Tiny bit,
Your workshop sounds super intriguing. I'm super excited for it. Is there anything else that you kind of want to share and let people know about, who may want to sign up, or just about your teaching style or anything?
Sure. Yes. In terms of teaching style, I'm very relaxed about these things. I get very excited about things. So if I do speak too much, this is a pre-warning. Do tell me to slow down, because I do get very excited about discussing things. In terms of like stuff I really enjoy and stuff like, I am a big fan of horror. So one of the things I love is like being able to tell stories that do scare us and do maybe push against the comfort levels a little bit. And whilst obviously this class is not going to be that, like a lot of my other projects I've done, so like for example, Last Line Rewind is a horror anthology podcast which uses role-playing games, and it's about how do we tell stories. Now even the players are like, ooh, I don't know what's going to happen next, and my character could at any moment not be around anymore, and being okay with that and dealing with those possibly very tough topics. So I enjoyed telling stories of all those sorts of things. So those are the sorts of things I like, being able to share things and being able to work out what is it about a story that keeps it engaging, and for everyone to be like, oh, I did not expect that. I don't know if I would have said anything like that to begin with, but I'm glad I did. I feel like I've learned a lot. So yeah, my big thing is always storytelling, sort of player first, bam, big narrative, and maybe a little bit of sprinkling of horror on top, depending on your mileage. So there you go.
Just a pinch of horror, just right on the top.
A little bit,
there.
yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Fiona, again, super excited for your workshop and for everyone who learns how to build worlds using improv. So very excited about that, and just really grateful to have you at Dare to Fail Improv.
No, delighted to be here. I can't wait.